Welcome back, everybody. I am C-Money. I'm a Grandmaster level Risk Global Domination player, and today we're not actually going to be playing a full game of Risk. I'm going to be running through one of the Risk fundamentals, especially for progressive cards and even more so for progressive cards with capitals. So that concept is card blocking. I have mentioned card blocking a bunch of times in my videos, and I thought I'd go through kind of a bit of a guide on how to set it up, how it affects what positioning you should choose, and ultimately how to do it yourself. So I'm in pass and play right now here on the game. The protagonist for the game is going to be the one that I typically use here, the green player. That's myself. But we've got a couple other players. We've got three other players. I've killed off two of them intentionally. Three other players that we're going to look at. And I wanted to start in Purple's position because Purple is the player who's going to be most easily card blocked. So I ignore the sounds that play between each turn. It's just a feature of pass and play. So Purple's obviously wants to make sure maybe he's relatively experienced, but he picked a bad cap. So the pink player's dead. This capital is Pink's, and then this is Purple's. I intentionally gave these players weaker caps because it's easier to be card blocked as a weaker player, in my opinion, because you get attracted to stuff that doesn't necessarily look as good. Purple wasn't last in the turn order, didn't have great spots around the map, so went where they had some material. That was the idea here. So we'll let Purple make their attack, right? And, oh no, they've opened up Green's capital on a trade-in. Purple will be on a trade-in as well, so it doesn't make sense for me as the green protagonist here to open up the purple player or to break the purple player when they're on a trade. And that's one of the big things with card blocking is you don't want to try to set it up until you know that player, not that you know that player won't have a trade, but that you know that player isn't 100% on a trade, right? If you're on 5 cards here, like everybody other than white is. White killed the orange player, so his cards are a little bit different. Purple's on a trade. Yellow's on a trade. Green's on a trade. And we can see those trades. We're sitting at about 30 here. So as the green player, I have to trade in. And we're not going to play this through necessarily like a specific or like a particular game, but we're going to evaluate everybody's positions first and then set up the card block. So we'll go through everybody's position. So for the theory of our game and just how I played it out, the orange player irritated white, and then white used all of his resources initially to kill orange and lost his capital on Trieste. So green, our protagonist, is in the best position, in my opinion, because he's got an open cap in both directions. He's holding multiple bonuses. He is probably going to get hit by yellow down here, and the yellow player is somebody I also want to look at because I want to create a I want you to notice the parallels between yellow and purple, and then also notice the differences. So unfortunately, the green player here is going to have to break white, who he has established a decent relationship with. So we pretend that we'll do like the little crying emoji and then strike, but we want to make sure our capitals are nice and fortified. And this step even here is something to pay attention to for how not to get card blocked. Obviously, this is a simulation that I'm setting up for the purpose of the video, but leaving your capitals open to attacks is one of the best ways to prevent getting card blocked. So in this particular case, our capitals are only opened in one spot. Yes, we're getting a lot of bonuses, but even as the green player here, we've got to be careful that like purple and white don't try to set a card block up on us. Force me to hit here on Denarides or even Burgundy and then set the card block. Even in a middle position like this, it is possible. And we're going to use the white player as an example. I'll probably cut to it once we get there. But the white player is an example of how to card block somebody with who's not in a pocket. And that's something that I want to get on. I want to discuss the concept of putting yourself in a pocket in a moment once we look at yellow, since we've already seen purple, and we'll look at those parallels. So let me go through with the green player's turn here. As we previously said, we don't want to aggress somebody that we know is going to be on a trade-in. So we leave yellow alone. We leave purple alone. And also this green player, actually, he knows purple's presence is up here, But through my simulation, green never discovered both of the capitals up here. Also never discovered the yellow capital. He's only aware of white's capital over here. So there's 3 capitals he's unaware of. So you don't want to go overly aggressive and accidentally open up a very strong capital. And that's something we'll look at for the yellow player here. So let me get through white's turn. We'll end our attack phase. We'll pull back in. Again, white and green want to have good relationships. White has been broken in the back by yellow, but in this case, we'll consider white like an expert level player, like aware of what he should do, but maybe not overly aggressive, or maybe not overly aware of necessarily the fact that he might be card blocked. Obviously, on 3 cards, the green player probably not going to try to card block somebody who's already open. I would have had to have set it up on the last turn, and you don't know what white has for attacks in other spots. So as the white player here, I'm gonna fortify my capital, but we're not playing like I'm playing how I think this player who got into this position would play, not how I would play it. So white's gonna take his bonus back because he thinks that the bonus is important. He wants to make sure his capital is strong, doing a good job of that, but he's gonna hold on the border here and stop. He's trusting that green won't hit him in the bonuses that he cares about, so to speak. And then now yellow is in an awkward position where his big stack is what he's going to have to irritate the green player here. And this is going to start kind of the lesson of, first we'll start with what to do if you're in a position where you might be card blocked. So obviously both purple and yellow are not card blocked at the moment. Yellow is, and we'll create the parallels here. So I want you guys to pay attention to the positioning of yellow here. And this was something I did intentionally when setting this up. Yellow has capped, this was yellow's original capital. He is capped in a pocket. Now there's something that you have to make sure you do to the best of your ability if you're going to be in a pocket and you don't know where a better capital that you can upgrade is, or rather how strong it might be. Obviously yellow saw this capital in St. Petersburg of white's, but he's not going to be able to run across the map and take that even with this trade-in. The most you have is 114. That capital had about 70 or 80, if I remember correctly. So yellow needs to do a good job of keeping an external position. Now, with how much white and green are getting per turn, this may be something that he's not able to do. But this is a parallel I want to draw between both of these positions. So yellow's going to make sure he has a strong cap, so when he has to attack out, he can get some legs behind him and potentially create that external position again. But he's on 2 cards now, so he has to take. And there's an interesting position to put yourself in here, right? You don't know if green's on a trade. Do you back off and hope that green doesn't try to card block you? Green's general idea of where your capital is either in the pocket down here in the lower right or in Spain, which, if I was the green player running through this, I would probably assume it's in Spain just because I think I had some material down in here earlier and didn't see any capital necessarily. So yellow's going to sit tight, and this is the big thing that I want to draw the comparison with. If you do find yourself in a pocket, mind you, this is a bad capital for yellow to pick for the late game. You secure yourself an early bonus, but you are a 1-point card block on Brittany here. All that another player has to do is sit troops on Brittany after you've attacked Gascony, and you are trapped. So if yellow gets their external position, which, spoiler alert, we're going to intentionally remove their external position just to show you the simplest card block against the yellow player, they want to make sure they keep this as long as they can. However, you also want to make sure you can attack. So in this situation, I'm probably leaning towards leaving it there instead of... and look, now yellow's got a joker, great spot to be in. Even if that gets removed, he can break out when he needs to. So, not a bad play. Now, purple's doing an interesting strategy here where he's got his troops on London. And this is something I've seen a lot from players who have wound up in Noob Corner. And if you're not familiar with Noob Corner, it's this upper left region here of Iceland and the UK. Sometimes it can include Scandinavia if there's a pocket with blizzards on like Denmark or Rhine, and then Finland, Roskilde, Petrozavodsk. But all of that aside, Noob Corner is essentially these 2 bonuses. It's a +5 total. It's pretty good in the early game, but unless you have the London cap, without these blizzards, mind you, unless you have the London cap, it's a very card blockable position. So purple's got himself in a tough spot here. He's on a trade-in, And what the purple player should do is try to keep as many of these troops out externally. But you don't... Purple doesn't necessarily know that this capital is here. He hasn't gone down into Gascony yet. So he's just going to take his troops, and then he's going to place some over here for his own protection. Now, the issue here is that this is going to be seen as a sign of aggression from green. Even if he doesn't attack there, it's a little nerve-wracking. And purple's smart enough to fortify his capitals back here, yada, yada, yada. He'll make his take, and then he'll be like, oh, shoot, I just opened up a really strong yellow capital. And he'll pull this back. He'll leave the 20 over there, but he doesn't want to cause problems with yellow. Now, green's holding all of this territory, being friendly to white, but isn't on a trade right now, right? So he doesn't want to break any more of white because he doesn't want to create any more problems. And he knows where the white capital is. And something that's really important is you don't want to open up the capitals of other players if you don't need to. So what green is going to do here, I wouldn't have placed all of that. That was an accident, admittedly. Green does not want to hit Estonia and Latvia because he knows that the capital is on St. Petersburg. And he doesn't want to open it because it makes the card block on this player easier later on. And that's something that's really important. Obviously, we're not going to have a cookie-cutter game like this every single game. But that's really important for thinking, like a lot of grandmasters, people way better than I am, are thinking moves like 10, 15, 20 moves ahead sometimes. Because green's obviously in a great position. White's in a pretty good position too, but green knows if I don't ever open that capital and I leave mine open as long as I can, then you are going to have a much easier time card blocking the other player than themselves on you. So green could even set up a 5-point card block here if white removes the yellow player. Now, nobody has had a card block set up on them yet, so let's kind of, I'm going to try to fast forward through these moves here. What white's going to do is he's going to start trying to make ground. He doesn't care about taking bonuses in here because he almost wants green to open up his capital. And he's going to start making ground on yellow on the backside. So yellow's going to be in a tough spot here. And white did have material over on Gascony. He knows that yellow capital is over here. So what white's going to do is he's going to get himself onto 5 cards. And then he's going to remove that external yellow position. So let's get through yellow's turn. He'll commit some troops off. He's got a trade on 3. But he's just going to keep going, chugging along here. And now purple's at an awkward spot where he's got to break green. So as the green protagonist, I'm going to see, okay, I'm paying attention to how many troops is purple getting. I know purple's not anywhere else in the map. He's just on the left side here. I see 16, right? We know somebody's got 2 caps. And green would have seen 2 caps on somebody before because purple took pink's cap before green took the Trieste cap here. So what the green player is going to realize is purple's only here on the left side. And seeing troops committed off of this spot is going to kind of tell the green player, okay, his caps aren't close to me. So purple's going to make his take. It's going to irritate the green player. We'll just have him throw on there. And then green's going to be on a trade here on the next turn. So purple's going to pull back to his safe zone. But what's going to end up happening is a lot is going to go down all at once here. So let's have our green player get to his 5 cards. He's not going to open up, but he is going to strengthen this, right? Because he's planning on making a move. The first of our card blocks is going to come in here very, very soon. And it's going to be executed likely by the green player here. And then I'll fast forward for some additional ones. But I want to show you guys kind of how this ends up, right? So white is like, okay, my best path forward here is putting myself in a position for a late game 1v1 with the green player where maybe I can win. My cap's locked, but I've seen yellow stacked. The trades are high enough. I'm going to wipe yellow out over here. So this is all going to happen. And this is something that if you know a player is trying to maintain an external stack and they only have a 1-point capital hold like the yellow player has here, if you're smart enough, I mean, you could even hit through green. If green realized you were laying down a card block, like if I saw a player trying to lay down a card block on somebody else, that's material that player is using that's not aggressing me. So if I saw white cut through me and then not fortify back and he leaves whatever he cut through me with over there, I don't think I would retaliate, right? So white's going to remove yellow. He's going to pull back to capital. We see that happen because we're the green player next to that. And that's another kind of lesson here is that, while it's important to keep an external position, it's also important to remove the external position if you have that ability. A lot of times, and you guys have seen it in videos on the channel, is I will cap in a position where somebody is behind me. And if I can remove every external position that they have and time it right where the trades are high enough where they can't blast through me and they're just stuck behind me, that's a really effective card block. A lot of times that'll happen just with your capital alone. In this example, we don't have that case, but that's something that can happen. So now, what yellow is going to do, and this is something that I've seen as well, players in the positions like this will frequently trade in early. What I think is the best play, especially when the trades are 50 plus like they are right now, is you take your card first. If you're on 4 cards and you have a trade, it's better to get yourself to 5, especially when you have a joker like this. Obviously, I don't have a set that doesn't include the joker, but if you have a joker / wild card like the yellow player has here, you attack out. You see, okay, no card block set up yet, and I would pull back in. So the yellow player is trying to be smart about this, but his external position has been removed. He's eventually going to be card blocked. Now purple is not on a, or is on a trade, and we're going to pretend the purple player's newbie, right? He's like, I just got to live here. I'm trying to set up an example where green is in a position. Ideally, what green would end up doing is waiting to strike until purple, after purple's trade in turn, which would be the next turn. I'm trying to just simulate ahead here for the purpose of the video. So purple will take his attack. He'll fortify his caps like he's been doing. He'll get this up to like 60, which is a lot, but if you can remove everything, that's great. So, oh no, purple's just made a critical mistake. He's opened up green's cap again. Now, obviously to set up the card block as the green player here, we're going to need to hit through that regardless because we don't want purple on an external here when we know that yellow's in the corner. So green's actually going to, because he knows where yellow is, he saw yellow got removed, green's about to, well, I'm not going to set up the two-point card block, right? We don't set up a 2-point card block because yellow is on a trade. So that goes back to that where you don't want to set up the card block if somebody's just going to blast through it. You can prep in certain spots. I've done that before where I'll prep across the board, but leave a spot open where I know that they're going to hit through or even make them hit through part of the card block. But in this case, we're just going to go in and we're just going to get super aggro here. We know where purple is. We'll at least check. We'll see how much there. And we go, okay, 62 there. I might as well hit it. He's definitely not on a trade. And then green finds out, okay, this player is exclusively up here, not on a trade, nowhere else. And we'll fortify back to capital. We know that he's getting probably no more than like 12 a turn here. Purple has been card blocked. And now I want to take a brief time here. Obviously, I want to skip past the white player. We're just going to have the white player do some baloney because white's not the important person at this time. Very strong capital. He's just going to take his card and pass. Call it a day. Whatever. I want to get to yellow here because both yellow and purple are in an awkward position. This is something that you should think about at the beginning of the game, is how to avoid the card block. Obviously, green has set up the card block here on the... Okay, so we do have a trade independent of the joker. Perfect. How do we avoid the card block when we're picking our capitals? So I'm going to cut over to a segment of best capital choices here, or even best positional choices, right? Because this isn't limited, the lesson here isn't limited to just capitals. Progressive cards in general, like if you're on the EU Advanced map like this, and you decide to go for this bonus, and you get knocked out of everywhere else, and this is where you've been fortifying, you can still be card blocked even though it's not capitals. It actually just makes you easier to kill because you don't have the capital defense. So in this case, yellow is going to be cautionary. He doesn't know how much green has in front of him. He's going to hit out, and he knows he has a trade, right? So he sees 35, and now green might even try to set up a card block on yellow here, which obviously yellow will break through. So what does purple do? Well, how do I avoid the card block once I'm in it? You're going to have to pull troops off, which is unfortunate. You're not going to be able to win a 10 on 35 roll. And a lot of times what the newer players will do is they'll just blast it. They won't even individual card slider, or not card slider, but slow roll. And then you've got to probably pull off enough to make sure that you can beat it. But then the issue comes in, well, when somebody pulls off, what do I do to prevent that? Green's not on a trade here. Well, what you do is you make sure you can get your card elsewhere. You don't relock your capital. And then if you're really dedicated to it, so you take your card. Obviously, purple just pulled a bunch off. The trades aren't that high. You're not on a trade. 0%ing is not a bad idea. We just took out 41 with the 0% here. So you just use the slider. You just see where it lines up on 0%. And then I would be a little careful fortifying off here. I would probably fortify off the capital that has more troops. And you just want to make sure that the purple player can't get through that. So now we're going to take a look. And ideally, I've edited this so that we take a look at the cap choices to avoid positions like yellow and purple, to avoid ending up in spots like that. So I have here a freshly generated map. We got different colored players, different blizzards, everything set up here. And the purpose of this portion of the video is to evaluate your positions both for picking a good spot that you can get bonuses and excel from in the early game. And this, mind you, doesn't have to be capitals, but we're going to use this as capitals. Could also just be what bonuses you target. Like, for example, green in here with the 3 and the 2, moving before purple. The generic Alps bonus here in a non-caps game, very good to go for. But we'll look at every player's position and kind of see what capitals are going to prevent us from getting card blocked and which ones also help us excel in the game moving forward. So there's a risk-reward to stuff like this where you could pick something that is a little bit more card blockable but could potentially allow you to upgrade to a better position early in the game. Or not even upgrade from a better position, but take an additional position. And we'll look at everybody's spots and kind of evaluate those positions right now and how they relate to potentially being card blocked later. So all we see here is red spots and the notable blizzards on the map. We have a bit of an interesting Russian blizzard here, which might make the Russian capital over in Russia a little bit weaker because a 3-point card block from Russia if you were on that, but we'll talk about that when we see who is on that spot. But the most notable blizzards are going to be the Andalusia blizzard here, the Rome blizzard here. That makes all of this down here a 1-point hold from Benghazi, which red does control. However, the red player in this position has vision of the blue player who moves behind them and who has a +4 and a +3 here back in this pocket. So a lot of times, there's one additional thing that you have to factor in when playing capitals. It's that other players who aren't as strong as you may just see lots of troops in a spot that has a high bonus, regardless of card blocking. That's kind of, you got to think about what the other players are thinking. Can I capture this area? Will somebody cap there? So red sees all this. Both of these territories here, I wouldn't personally cap back there. The red player out of the first position actually doesn't have that many good cap choices because green can get away with the Trieste cap next to red, probably even with red capping there. I don't think a productive roll from a max 11 cap on a 6 cap would be a very good idea. I've seen it happen, but kind of ruins both players' games. But we're in a tough spot, right? You definitely don't pick the Benghazi cap. You don't pick anything back here because you're too worried about blue, which I think is the right choice. Now, a 3-point hold Orient, kind of tough. As the red player, you do go first, right? So you have the benefit of being able to kind of establish yourself. But you don't have any material. You don't want to play for a split bonus here on Italy. You don't really have any material up at the top of the map on this one. So I think your best bet is going to be the Denarides choice here, even though you are next to green. You just kind of have to play good neighbor. The benefit here is that you are a 1 attack away break on green's bonus. Green is 2 attacks break on you if you break first. Not something I would necessarily recommend, but something to kind of note as you're evaluating the position. So you could also go for Orient here. Orient, I think, is a little bit easier of a card block. You do have to factor in the fact that green likely chooses here. So that's like one additional territory that does block you. So you essentially have, an attack into Hungary. Your card block would actually, it'd still be a pretty tough one because you'd have to go Vienna, Prussia, Poland, Lviv, Kiev, and then Istanbul, Benghazi. It's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 point card block even with this territory here. So I think your best choice as red is going to be Dainarides here. So we'll pick that as red. And that's the other thing is we're going through these positions. We'll factor in, well, do we see the capitals of the other players? So as green here, you do have a 2-point hold on Noob Corner if you wanted it from London. And I said earlier in the video that the London capital here is really the only Noob Corner capital you should even consider. With this Blizzard here, it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4-point card block. If this Blizzard wasn't here, it would be a 5-point card block from that position, meaning you'd have to guard all of those spots. You could even turn it into a 2-point card block on Netherlands and Alps. Well, I guess 3-point Oslo, Netherlands and Alps, or even Scotland, Netherlands and Alps, and just let green have all of this material in here. But I think your best capital here as the green player is going to be this Trieste cap, even though red is right next to you. So purple now, purple's in an interesting position, right? The territory that they have the most troops on is the +3 here, but you don't really want to go next to 2 capitals. You're going to have a hard time getting bonuses anywhere, and quite frankly, this is going to at least irritate the green player. So I don't think that's a great choice. Now, where does that leave you in other spots? Well, the Berlin cap is not very mobile, and it's a 1, 2, 3, 4-point card block on this side. It'd be a 1-point or 2-point on the back side. So 6-point isn't terrible. We did mention Russia earlier. Now, this would be a 1, 2, 3-point card block on Russia from Estonia, Latvia, Finland. Well, you could even go Roskilde here, and then Georgia. Not the best. The 3-point card block's tough. And then there's obviously France here. And the France one's going to be entirely dependent on how much territory you take. So this is a 3-point card block for this entire bottom left here. If you were to choose that, you could go London, Netherlands, Alps, and just let the player hold both of these. But when the trade-ins are that high, it's pretty easy to block that. The purple one's arguably the toughest position to choose from here. I think ultimately Berlin is going to put you in a position to potentially take this bonus, retaliate against green if he breaks you, pull your troops in, and then also not be horribly card blocked just because there's, if you take Prussia, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different spots you can hit. But also that's 5 different spots that can whack your stack down. It's a little tough. Purple's in a tough spot. I think you pick Berlin, and then you upgrade from that. Now, orange is also in a bit of a tough spot. Orange doesn't have any good material here, and unfortunately, as the orange player, I actually think that this St. Petersburg cap might be your best bet just for map control. So card blocking is important, but also putting yourself in a position for map control is pretty important too. You're not really going to want to cap right next to purple here. I think any player who lacks experience in the game is going to likely choose this Gascony cap, which I think is foolish with the green 3 right there. It's extra material that you're going to have to remove. I think if I was playing this, I'd look at that. I'd be like, it's tempting because it's a free +4, probably turn 1, but you're also at a risk of green rolling you on turn 1 as well with all the troops that they're getting. Whereas if you go up here, you move before yellow. There's a chance purple could roll you, but it wouldn't be very successful. And this way, instead of having the 3-point card block that Russia has, you have an additional territory here that you can work with in terms of that block, and you also control more, right? So, orange's spot is pretty equally bad to purple in terms of what we've got here. So we'll choose this one. Now, blue is one of those situations where I was saying earlier, sometimes it's best to take a spot aggressively and then upgrade as fast as you can. Because if you look at blue spots here, the only one that's like remotely decent is going to be this Lviv cap. I think there's a mixture here where Lviv is definitely the better late game cap, but do you think that you can upgrade to a better capital that's out in the open just by going down here with a +7, clearing this out and expanding? I think what anybody realistically is probably going to do is just take this. You see nearly everything in here. You know that somebody's probably not capped on G-Gel. I think blue would probably end up taking the Sahara Desert cap here, when in reality, I think the Lviv cap is a significantly better cap for the late game, especially knowing what you would know as the blue player. But I think any given noob is going to pick that Sahara Desert cap. Now, yellow is in an interesting spot as well, where they've kind of got no great places to choose from. And while the card blocks and knowing where card blocks are going to be late game are important, sometimes it's best just to protect yourself. In yellow's case, they actually have the benefit of Romania being relatively strong. The issue is if the player that you're playing with is inexperienced, they might just roll you. So I think Romania is the best cap here. Regardless, it is definitely the best cap. You might want to look somewhere else, or you just take the risk of doing this because you know that it's the least card blockable of the options available. You know, like you pick Egypt, you're going to be a 2-point and a 1-point over here. If you pick Finland, you're a 2-point and a 1-point over here. So I think you just go Romania and you hope red doesn't roll you. Obviously, Red's not going to be thrilled about that, but if he doesn't roll you turn 1, you're probably good, and you're probably safe. You're going to have to try to explore bonuses elsewhere. But that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. I hope this helps evaluate positions, risk behind the positions, where the card blocks are, because that's the whole purpose of the video. And now back to the rest of it. And we are going to go, and we're going to now try to set up our card block on the white player. So I'm going to skip ahead. We're going to have yellow and purple eliminated. We'll skip ahead here and work on that situation. All right, so we have just killed the yellow player, and we've got 61 troops to place off of the cards that we've gotten from that player. And you can see we're controlling this much of the board, and it's going to get to the point where white's probably going to try to do the same thing to us. We know we'll be on 5 cards next turn. And I think in this position, when you've got a capital here and then only 3 spots bordering this player, your best course of action is probably forcing them to trade in and whack through you. So what I would consider doing here is actually making these like 30s. They're on 4 cards. You saw on the previous turn, they were getting 34 troops. So that's not a guaranteed roll. So and they might know that, and they might want to force themselves to trade in. So we'll put them on 30. We'll put these on 31 or 32. And then I'll even fortify off here. We've already taken a card on this turn, so we'll fortify like 35 over here. So we know that they were getting 34, but they're actually, I think I ended up taking additional territory, so they are going to be getting more here, up to 42. So he will be able to blast through, but he's actually not on a trade. So we're on a trade, and what we want to do is we want to try to set up this position where they're forced to open something, right? So our capital's already open. He's not super worried about that. We don't know how much is on white's cap. So white's going to blast through down here. And because he knows he can't card block us anytime soon because of what we've set up, and he's not on a trade, he's probably just going to go hog wild here and take all of this. This is something that I've seen a lot, is players just try to reduce your bonus as much as they can. The difference is that I think in this situation, white's probably going to pull off capital. So maybe he makes sure that he can do whatever here. You know, he can attack on the next turn. He'll probably pull off more than 80 if his cap is that big. He wants to be able to attack on the next turn. So in this situation, we're on a trade-in, and we don't want to remove the blocks that we've already got set up. Or maybe we step in. So we don't want him to be able to attack, but he's on a trade, right? So maybe we just leave the 80 there and we set up our other forces so that we can go in a different spot. The issue is he's going to be able to take a card here. So you kind of need to put him in a position where he's got to break something again. So I think you probably commit. You make sure you can hit this, but then you make sure also at the same time that you're getting up to a point where he's got to break more stuff again. So these are kind of the awkward positions where, all right, we've got him down to this point. He's going to be getting a bunch on this next turn. Let's just sit here because we know he's got to trade it. So white's controlling a bunch of the ground, but that capital is never open. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have like the back and forth happen where white breaks a bunch and green breaks a bunch. And we're going to get to a point where obviously like in this position, it looks like white is going to win. But we'll play like the game of attrition here where green eventually gets some leverage. And then I'll show you guys like the right way, or not the right way, but the way that I would position myself as green setting up this card block. So I'll fast forward to that right now. Actually, while I'm at it, I want to make sure that I make a note here is that, like, how about this example we'll go through where white breaks so much and he wants to take a look at all the capitals. And so he sends some troops down in here where he actually ends up opening your capital, sees that he can't take that. But then he finds a capital. Oh, hey, maybe I'll take this, right? So he'll come up here. He takes this capital. He ends his attack phase. He fortifies over. And you see, oh my god, he's got so much on that. Well, you've essentially got to put yourself in a spot where you card block both the capitals. So how do we do that? Well, it might even be worth giving up this cap here. I wouldn't actually add anything up here. I would want to trap him in this corner. So we've got our trade in, but I don't think we want to use it yet. I think our best course of action is setting up another block somewhere else. Force him to take his cards in here, clear this out, and then be able to kind of set up a wall. So white's had to pull a bunch over there, right? So the other cap is weak. At this point, you want to start considering breaking bonuses while also holding spots where he's got to hit. So you know you're going to have takes here. This is kind of an interesting situation where do you break him or do you trade in and break? I think probably, especially because that 130 is not going anywhere. You don't know if he's going to have a trade himself. So we'll do that. And then now I will fast forward to a position where we've got white up in the upper left and then over in Russia and a card block about to be set up on that position. So now we're in a spot where, judging by green's positioning here, we see how much white is getting per turn. 33 troops a turn. Every single spot on the map here that white borders is protected by a large stack. And honestly, I'd probably even make it more fortified on each spot just to make sure that white can't do anything. And the question becomes where do you sit, right? So green's not on a trade here, so he's going to have to split somewhere. So I think you break this bonus in this spot because that's going to reduce him by 8. So he'll be down to 23 instead of 25 instead of the 33. And then you can split these relatively evenly. In this position, you could probably get slow rolled down, maybe, or even straight blitzed. So I probably would have fortified that maybe as a 40 and then pulled some troops over. That was an accident for the demonstration purposes. But so white's not on a trade, right? Now, as white, we've got a ton of troops that can pull off. We don't have a trade. Green does. Well, we don't know if green does. We got 24 a turn here. Where does he pull off? Well, one of the most important things on where you pull off, because this is the other thing, is how do we defeat the card block, right? You guys have also seen me defeat card blocks, granted, with very good luck. In this position, you want to attack the territories, the most territories at once with where you pull off to. And this is something I think a lot of people don't realize. Like, it would be very easy to pull off of St. Petersburg here. So, like, place here on Estonia and Latvia. But then you're only attacking one territory. You're giving the green player here the option to fortify everything onto Prussia. Whereas if you went Lithuania attacks both Prussia and Poland. Green's going to have to make a choice or alternatively split between the two to try to prevent your advances into their territory, your advances of them getting a card. So as the white player here, alternatively, if this wasn't a capital on Trieste, you'd have 3 different points that the green player would have to hit. The problem is you don't want to get it up too high, right? Because then green can attack whatever you pull off with all 3 of these. You can hit everything and then just fortify it to make sure that you can't hit it. So in this case, I think your best bet is find the weakest stacks that border each other and try to hit both of them. So you place here, you pull off, and we're going to pull off a bunch, right? We'll leave like 100 on cap. Green might not have a trade. Or we'll pull off like 150, just as the example here. So like, how is green going to combat this? Well, obviously, a lot of times it does come down to card luck. And in this particular case, the green player doesn't have a trade in. So it's likely that white's going to get through here. But you also want to make sure that you can still make your attack. So I think your best bet is probably just smashing it, because you know he's not on a trade, and he's got one more full turn after taking the card before he even has a chance of a set. So you place your troops down, and you blast. You do as much as you can. Obviously, he's going to get his card here, but you should have a chance to recover, and you still have a place where you can take a card that he won't be able to get through over here. So you take and split. Obviously, 24 on 26 is still risky. And then in this case, you probably end up leaving both of these open just because you can't really fortify that much in front of it. But now you're on 4 cards, right? You've made your take, and you can reset up your card block. He's going to have to pull off again. So maybe he goes, maybe he tries to keep this big, right? So he makes his attack. Oh, well, now you've accidentally just opened his capital. So white should have probably attacked Poland, but he was trying to avoid the 50. You end up opening the capital because maybe you made a mistake and forgot. And well, you're going to have to pull back, and he'll probably leave troops off. So what does green do now? Well, green's best bet is don't open up white's cap, and actually isn't on a trade. So green's got to be careful here. He's got kind of one more turn of being able to stave off white. So I think you just bank on the player not having a set on 3. This is the type of stuff where there's a lot of nuance behind the card block and a lot of like little plays of attrition where you just kind of got to go with the punches. There's a chance that white's going to have a trade on 3 here. You didn't have the trade on 4, but now you have a guaranteed trade on 5, right? So what does white do? Well, he's going to place everything here because his capitals are still pretty strong. And now he's going to sit, again, like I was saying before, you sit next to multiple territories to give yourself a better chance of success. The problem is that now green is in a position where he's got the trade, he can whack your stack, he can set up the card block again, and there's no guarantee that you have that. And from here, if white doesn't have a set, the game is most likely over. I would probably place everything on the one spot, hit it, and then split it. And now you are in a decent spot. We'll go around. We'll see if white's got the trade on 3. Does he have the trade on 3? He does not have the trade on 3. And that, he might be able to break through over here. Ideally, before that trade, I would have put more troops over there to make sure that he couldn't. But I think that's going to do it for this portion. Eventually, you continue making progress taking white's cards, preventing his blocks, and he might be able to get through once or twice. But you're earning so much more than him per turn. 46 versus 24, plus getting trades more frequently. Eventually, the green player, from this position with white not on a trade, is likely going to win. Now, we can even see the 25 on 26. It's actually a 60% roll. So I would have, if I was playing this like an actual game and paying it a little bit better attention, not trying to create the lesson content here, I probably, and he doesn't even get through. I was going to say, I would probably have put more troops over there. That was a blitz. I might have rolled it down a little bit, even though it did say 60%. So I hope you guys learned quite a bit from this video. If you did, hit that like button down below. I'll have more concise things about card blocks, but the main lessons to take away from this, I do want to get, I'll get to the rest of the outro, but the main lessons that you take away are be mindful of the positions that you take on the map. It's hard to hold middle of the map positions in the early game, but they're so much more powerful in the late game. Avoiding pockets like this Spain pocket here, which is a 1-point card block, or even the noob corner pocket up here, which is also a 1-point card block, is very important. And then making sure your capital doesn't get locked, especially in the late game. In the early game, you can sometimes get away with it, or even upgrade to an unlocked capital at some point. All of those things, keep in mind. At the end of the day, I hope you're out there playing some progressive cards and having successful card blocks, because it's a very useful skill, especially at the higher levels and at defeating higher level players. So hopefully you're able to break through those card blocks. You're able to set them up yourselves. I hope you learned something from this video. And if you did, like I said, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, uploaded videos just like this one. and maybe just regular games as well at 9 a.m. Eastern Time every single day. Comment down below what you thought about this one. If you want to catch a video that YouTube recommends for you, right here above my head, the subscribe button in the upper right-hand corner. As always, everybody, I have been C-Money. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a tremendous rest of your day. Peace.